One of the advantages of having the small Canon autofocus in my pocket, for example, was London, 1982. I was at a party for David Frost, and then one of the photographers said to me, "Oh, are you going to the Abbey Road Studios Awards?" And I said, "No, I haven't been invited." Anyway, I had another glass of champagne and I thought, "Oh, I'm going to go." So I had this woman with me who had a bustier on and a black mini skirt and fishnet stockings, and I said, "Come on, let's go to Abbey Road." So we got in a taxi. We arrived at Abbey Road Studios. Anyway, we got out of the cab and the security guard came running towards us as we got out saying, "Hurry up, the awards are about to start." They thought we were rock stars, and he couldn't see my camera because it was in my pocket of the suit. Anyway, he ushered us in, and I was standing next to Paul and Linda McCartney. So after the awards had finished, I turned to them and said, "Can I get a photo of the two of you?" And they said yes. So we did a few, and on the third one, they kissed, and I got it. Then I went off to the newspaper and said, "Let's see what I've got." And they come out with this huge print of Paul and Linda. The next day was Linda McCartney's exhibition of her photographs, and she'd invited me to go. And so they used my photo, pretending it was at her show the following day, and it was on page 3 of the Daily Mirror. I found their PR person, and I made a big print for Paul and Linda, and he sent it to them. 6 months later, I'm going to a big gallery opening in Soho, and I see them walking down the street in front of me. But I just walked past them. I didn't think they'd remember me or anything. And then I hear this wolf whistle, and I turn around and it's Linda, and she's saying, "Hey, come here." So I did. She said, "Are you ignoring us?" I said, "No, I didn't think you'd remember me." And she said, "Come on, darling, give us a hug. We love that photograph." And that meant more than anything, more than money or anything to me. When I was working back in Sydney for Vogue magazine, Yoko Ono came out for the Biennale, and she brought some of her artwork there. I knew she was coming, and I approached the PR lady to ask Yoko if she could come to my studio in Sydney for a portrait. Anyway, they asked her, but she declined. She said, "No, I don't know Robert. I'm not going anywhere strange." So anyway, I went to the press conference. After she'd finished talking and questions and everything, I went up to the PR lady and said, "I'd like to do a photo now of Yoko." And she said, and the PR lady said, "She's not coming to your house, Robert." And I said, "No, look." And I took out a big black cloth out of my camera bag. I said, "I bought the backdrop, it's fine. All I need is the security guards to hold up the backdrop." So they said, "Okay, you can have 5 minutes upstairs in the room before the TV people come." So we went upstairs to a room that was assigned for Yoko, and the guards held the backdrop up, and we did the photographs. And then we sat down and just chatted and talked and talked and talked. Now, I'd never met her before. Soon, there's bang, bang, bang on the door. And it's the PR woman, and she's saying, "Robert, I said 5 minutes with Yoko, not 35. Then Yoko asked me, she said, "Please send me a print of it." So I did. I made a print and I sent it to her in New York. And then for a few years after that, she sent me Christmas cards that were John Lennon's drawings every year at Christmas. Lovely. All right, well now, as you can see, I'm living in Bali. I retired from Vogue about 10 years ago and came to live here and set up studio. And so I do portraits of people. If I see somebody in the street, I'll just stop them if they look interesting, tourists or Indonesian people or anybody, and ask them to come to the studio, have their portrait taken. I also do work for charities. There's 2 charities, the Bali Children's Foundation, which enables an underprivileged child to go to university and study. And the other one is the John Fawcett Foundation, which helps children remove cataracts from their eyes, and they have a bus that goes around villages in Indonesia and does a very simple procedure. did the one for the blind children, and we raised enough money to enable 100 kids to have the cataracts removed. So that's what I'm doing in Bali at the moment. A lot of charity work, portraits. I never put the camera down. I can never stop.